Hello everyone, and welcome to PAS Virtual Summit 2020. I really wish I was in Houston with all of you, having fun in the community zone and learning about all this new stuff. But unfortunately that was not to be. But I still hope you really enjoy PAS Virtual Summit because I think it has a lot to offer over different time zones, different tracks, and over different days. So I really hope you enjoy it. Now we're gonna take a look at how you can check in with Powerapps, Flow and Power BI. So let's dive in. As previously stated, this session is about checking in with Powerapps, Flow and Power BI, and is about how you can integrate all these Power Platform tools together in a simple way by a fun example which we are going to build from scratch today. So before I dive in, I just want to touch a little briefly on what PAS has to offer, because PAS is so much more than just PAS Summit. PAS has virtual groups, local groups, they have smaller conferences and meetings all around the year. They also have the new PAS Pro membership, and I think there's a lot to offer in PAS that everyone should take advantage of. So when the session is over, you can head over to pas.org and you can go on and check what PAS has to offer for someone like yourself. My name is Asgeir Gunnarsson. I'm going to be with you for the next 60 minutes with the session, and then I'm going to do a Q&A afterwards. So I run a small consultancy called North Insights in Denmark. I come originally from Iceland, where I've been living the last many years. I am a data platform MVP, and I run the Icelandic Power BI user group and the Icelandic PAS group. I've been in BI for almost 15 years. Doing mostly Microsoft technologies, but also other technologies. I've also worked with Power BI and the rest of the Power Platform for the last few years as well. You can see there's on the slide here some contact information. If you want to get in touch, please do. If you want to talk data or just ask some questions about the session or something else, please feel free to get in touch. So now let's dive into the actual content. We are going to start with why. So why are we doing this? Why am I doing this session? Well, when I did this session first time, there's a couple of years ago, I just wanted to demonstrate how easy it is to get started with all these tools. So I knew Power BI really well, but I didn't know the other Power Platform tool, and I wanted to get to know them, and I wanted to see how they all work together. So that was my motivation for trying this out. And I wanted to find something that was not too hard to start with, but still not so easy and not so useless that it wouldn't help anyone. So hopefully this will inspire you to do something fun with these power tools. So the tools we're going to work with today, they are Powerapps. For those of you who don't know Powerapps, it's simple, and I say put simple in the quotes because everything is simple if you know how to work with it, and everything is simple as long as you're doing simple things. So it's a simple way to create apps for mobile devices or for computers or phones. There are a lot of existing templates, and you can get started really easy. And of course, things can get complicated if you want to do really complicated things, but things can stay easy if you're not doing too complicated things. Flow, or Power Automate as it's called now, It is a workflow engine, basically. It's a way to create data flows and processes. There are a lot of templates, a lot of connectors included, so it's a very easy way to take a workflow and automate it. So this is I think the tool in the Power Platform that's probably most accessible and most easy to get started, and one of the most easy ones to get benefit really fast. Because most organizations have some kind of workflow. You need to remember to write times or approve something. All these different things that are manual processes or email being sent around in organization today. Those can often be automated with Power Automate. And as I said, I think this is one of the tools that you will find most value fastest. It is though behind the scenes tool, so there's not like a front end for it, so that's why it's going to stay hidden. But if you're a developer or a person that can, you don't even have to have any big programming skills. It just needs to have some logical skills and some technology skills. Then you're gonna find that pretty accessible. Power BI, of course, is probably at least in this data group here, it's probably the most known of the Power Platform tools. It's been around for 5 years now. It is a tool to do presentation of data and of course data manipulations and data models as well. So these are the tools we're going to work with. We're going to work with all these. We are going to add one more tool. We're going to add Excel in it, because if we are at a data conference, we will talk about Excel, of course. Now it's we're going to have Excel in because it's just an easier way to do a whole session on the fly. I could have chosen to do a SQL Server or any kind of other database, but that will complicate things that I wouldn't be able to finish in 60 minutes without doing a lot of cut and paste, and I don't want to do that. So that was the why. Now let's look at what. So our goal here is that we want to be able to have an app where a person can register their location. So wherever they are in the world, they want to register the location. We want then to write that information into an Excel file. Remember, this could have been a SQL Server or something else, but if we just for simplicity's sake, we're going to have an Excel file. And we want a flow that will take that data and write it into that Excel file, of course. And then we want that same flow to update a Power BI report that is showing that same location on a map within the Power BI. So we want an app that the end user will click on the button where they will create this register the location, and we want to write it into the Excel file and then show it on a map. Okay, that is our goals. So in Power Apps, we want to have the button there where the user presses, so that will fetch the location. We want to write that location also on the screen, because now we are doing a demo, so we want to have, of course, we want to see what is going on. But we also want to put that into that Excel file and into Power BI. So we're going to have another button in our Power Apps, which will trigger our flow in Power Automate and write it over. In Power Automate, we want to have a flow that will, as I said, take the location, the name, and the date. Whatever, some of it will come from Power Apps, some of it will just put into our flow, and you write it into the Excel file. And we want to have the Excel file stored on OneDrive, because that will make it a little bit easier with our Power BI report as well. The flow will also run an update on the Power BI dataset, so we will get new information in the Power BI as soon as it happens. So we don't have to wait for a scheduled refresh. Of course, there's a limitation in Power BI about refreshes, so we need to take that into account. But for them purposes, we will do it like this. In Power BI, we want to take a very, very simple report. It's just going to show us a location on a map and in a table, so we can just see the data itself, and we want to see it on a map because maps are fun. We're going to develop the report in Power BI Desktop, and then we're going to publish it to powerbi.com so it can be accessible to other users. Very, very simple diagram. We have Power Apps on the left. It will create something. We will trigger a flow with the right to Excel. It will also refresh the Power BI dataset in the service. Okay, this is all that we're going to do. We're going to spend the time, and we're going to write this all from start to scratch during the session. So that was the what. Now we're going to talk about how. And in my slides, I have a detailed description of what I'm going to do. So I'm going to create an Excel document. I'm going to create 5 columns and so on and so forth. If there is any code in my session, it's going to be included in the slides as well. So these slides are for your benefit. I'm going to just switch over and I'm going to start building. So let's just go in and start doing instead of just reading slides. So let's move over to a browser. Or first, we're going to move over to Excel, because we are going to start with creating our Excel file where we're going to store the data, because it has to exist. When we create or it doesn't have to exist, but we want it to exist when we create our flow, because then it can write to it, and we don't need to check for if it exists and create it on so we can do all those things, but it just makes things much more complicated. So I'm just gonna create my Excel file. I'm gonna say a name, location, and I'm actually gonna have latitude and longitude in here It's not a not necessarily not necessary for this to work, but I'm just gonna have it because it's fun. We can, and I'm gonna have a date as well. So this is all here, and I'm gonna have put in one test data just to see how it works. So I'm gonna say my name, and I'm gonna say location is so this is my previous address in Iceland, because I wanted to be a different place than when we get the address now, where I'm sitting in Denmark. So I actually have the latitude and longitude for that. So let's put it in here. And this is just, the reason why I'm putting in a test line here is because when I create my Power BI report, I wanted to show something, so I can create my Power BI reports beforehand, and then I don't have to create it afterwards. I could, of course, done it in a different way, but then I wouldn't have been able to refresh the dataset if it doesn't exist. So it's this dependency thing. That's the reason why I'm doing this. So we have the 26th of October 2020. Now notice, I'm from Europe, so I'm writing, day, month, year in here. So what we are going to do now, we are going to create a table. So we're going to change this into our name table, because it just want to make it easier when we're writing to it from Power Automate. It's much easier if it is a defined table, because then Power BI knows how to find the last line to write into, or below the last line. So I'm going to say this is a table. It has found it. Says it has headers. I'm going to say OK. Yes, not now. And then I'm going to go to the formulas here. I'm going to go to define name. Sorry, not define name manager, sorry, because I don't want this to be called table 1. It's a default name is table 1, but I just want it to be called Pass Summit 2020. So now it's called Pass Summit 2020. I'm gonna save this, and now we need to save it in a good place. So I'm gonna save it, even though it's at this PC. I'm gonna save it in my OneDrive. I'm gonna save it in a place called Documents, Check-in App, because I do have. Just gonna create a folder here, and I'm gonna call this Pass Summit 2020. Save. That took a while. So now that I have saved it, it's ready to be used. So we need to create a Power BI desktop report on it. But before we do it, because we want this to be, connected, without a gateway or anything like that, I need to fetch the link for this particular file. So I need to know where it is stored. So you see there is a nice little link up here. So I'm going to go to copy path. And this will be the path to the file on OneDrive for Business. So I'm going to go back to Power BI Desktop. I am running the October version of Power BI Desktop, but that doesn't really matter. October 2020, that is. I'm going to say get data, and I am going to choose if my computer will comply, and I'm going to choose the web connector. Because this is on OneDrive for Business, if I choose a web connector, it's gonna be I can update this. I can refresh the dataset without having a gateway in between my Excel file and Power BI Desktop. So let's say connect. I'm gonna put in the URL, and what I need to remember is that the last part of the URL, this question mark web equals 1, we need to get rid of that, because otherwise Power BI doesn't like it. I'll take it away. Then the path is right. If you took the path from within OneDrive for Business instead of doing it in Excel, the path wouldn't include this last part, so that would be just fine without any alteration. But if you get it from within Excel, you need to take off this last part, so just so Power BI will accept it. I'm gonna say OK. I need to sign in. sure why Power BI did it like this. It should have just come up with my username, but this is okay. This is okay. This is the normal part of it. I am trying to present this, this session like this was not a recorded session, so hopefully you bear with me. So now we have a connection. Now we can go on and get it. And of course, when Power BI finds an Excel file in your path, it will just treat it as whatever Excel file. It doesn't matter if it's coming from a web source or from an Excel source. It will still, create it. So we have our table here. We have our sheet here. Of course, we want to take the table, and I'm going to do transform data instead of load because I want to just double check that my columns get the right definitions and the data types, and then just everything looks okay before I load it in, because I find this is just a better way of doing this. Okay, we have our name, the location, the latitude, the longitude, and the dates, and everything worked out fine. Power BI was happy with that. It's called pass summit the query, but that's fine. I don't need to change the name to this, so I'm fine with that. Just say close and apply. So now Power BI is going to load it. This is one line of data, so it shouldn't take very long. There's no connection to other tables because this is just very, very small one. Okay, so now we have that. Let's just start by putting before we go on, I just want to do one thing. So I want to go to my data area here, and I want to say that my latitude and longitude, I want to tell Power BI this is actually latitude and longitude, and my location is actually a place. So I'm gonna go to latitude, and I'm gonna say this is a latitude. This will just make the map in Power BI more accurate. It would make it easier for Power BI to tell Bing Maps that what this is, and then Bing Maps would have it easier to interpret it. And the location part, because this is a full address, we have to be careful that when we choose a category, we should not choose the address here, because that's just the address part of it. Because this is a street, a number, a postal code, and place and a country. We need to call this a place. Here it is, place, and then Power BI will be fine with it. So let's go in here now. We have put this to be as it should. I say this is strictly not necessary, but this is something that we want. So I'm gonna create a map. I'm gonna make that take most of the screen, and I'm gonna say we're gonna put a latitude, and I'm gonna put a longitude, and I wanna put a date on here as on size. So I'm gonna say discount the number of so I'm just counting a date. But it doesn't really matter. So it's just because my date is it's going to be a date time. It's going to be very accurate. So this is basically a row count. Instead of creating a row count measure, I'm just doing it like this. Normally, of course, I would create a row count measure instead. So I'm going to put in a table, and I'm going to say what person was it, what was the place they checked in, and at what date. I don't want this to be a hierarchy, I just want the date. So even though my date is just a date now, it's gonna be a date time when it comes from the source. Just wanna go in here, sorry about this. I'm gonna say that this date should not be on this format because I don't care what weekday it is. I just care about the date itself. So now we have that. It's my, I was at this address on this date. Okay, I'm fine with this. I'm not gonna prettify it. I'm not gonna do anything now because this is not the focus of the session. This is just a setup of what we need to do. So I'm gonna save this, and I'm gonna save this into this one here. I'm gonna call this Pass Summit 2020. I'm gonna publish this, and I'm gonna publish this into my Pass Virtual Summit 2020 workspace. So when I will publish this now, it will of course be published to powerbi.com, and then when it's there, we can look at it in the browser, and then we can start doing the dataset update and everything. So I'm gonna go to the browser now. I can now see I am in that workspace that I just published to. And you can see already my report and my data set on here. And if I look at the report, It's going to look exactly what it looked before. Our map and our table. So let's go back into the data, because what I want to do now, I want to make sure the dataset is refreshable, and it won't be refreshable until I have gone and set what account needs to be used so it can be refreshed. Because even though I had logged in Power BI Desktop to get to the data, I need to log in here as well, because it's not necessarily the creator that's gonna do the refreshes. So I'm gonna go edit credentials. It's gonna ask me what kind of method do you want. We want to use OAuth 2, and I'm gonna say this is organizational because this is all internal. Let's say sign in, and now Power BI remembers me, which is good. So now it is refreshable, and just to verify it, I just want to go in here, and I'm gonna click refresh. You can see the last refresh time was 2:24:27. Let me do a refresh on this. I'm in the CET time zone, so Central European time. So that's what time it is when I'm recording this. And now it's 2:25. So it is now it realized that the refresh went through and everything went well. Okay, so now we have set up the backend basically. So we have set up our Excel file and we have set up our Power BI. Now we can start doing the fun stuff. So the next thing we need to do is we want to create our Powerapps, the app that we can use to, expose to the end user to get the location. So I'm going to go to Powerapps. I have already opened the browser on Powerapps. I also opened the browser on Power Automate, although we don't really have to do that, but I have already done it. So when we are working in Powerapps, when you want to create something in Powerapps, I'm on the create part. So you start on, of course, on the home. I'm in an environment called North Insights, which is my organization. I only have one environment in my organization, but you might have multiple, so you need to be aware of that. I am on the create tab here, and that will give me a few options. So first of all, it says start from blank. This is the three options here. Start from data, which is on here, or start from template, which is on the bottom. But basically, there are three types of Powerapps you can create. So first of all, you can create something called a canvas app, and a canvas app is basically a blank slate where you can put whatever you want in it. You can create it from a template, so it doesn't have to be like an empty screen, but basically it's a blank slate where you can position and put things into wherever you want to do it, and you have access to a lot of different controls, and you can have a lot of creative freedom. But you need to do data connections, and you need all those you need to set up yourself. Another thing you can do is you can create a model-driven app. And a model-driven app is where you start with the data. So it has to be in the common data services. The data is there. You can do a model-driven app, which will then take outset in your data and make it much easier for you to create a data-driven apps. Again, because it needs the common data services, it might not be the right choice, or it might be the right choice. You can also embed a model-driven app within a Canvas app, but that's a little bit more complicated than what we're going to talk about today. And the third part is a portal. So a Powerapps Portal is basically a way where you can create Power Apps that are exposed to the public. So you will, instead of having a named user, you can have a pay by by rendering basically. So if you want to expose it to public, it's Power Portal. But otherwise, there's basically two ways: it's Canvas and the model-driven apps. You can start from blank, as I said, or you can start from data, or you can start from a template. There are a bunch of different templates that are, great way to start if you're just starting in Powerapps. So you can, take a lot of these templates and create some, some fun apps, and you can edit them. They might not be exactly what you need, but they might be very close to it. So you could, so for example, here's a site inspection where it's, complete site inspection app, but maybe you need something that is, not sites, but it's a machine inspection or something like that. So then you can start from there, and instead of coding everything yourself, you just use those templates. But we are going to code everything ourselves, so we're going to start from scratch, and we're going to do a Canvas app because we don't have our data in common data services. We have our data in Excel, so that's why we're going to do a Canvas app, and we're going to start from blank. So I'm going to click on this. We need to give it a name, and I'm going to call this Pass Summit 2020, And you need to choose if this is a tablet format or a phone format. So basically, is this landscape, or is it widescreen format, sorry, or is it a portrait format? I'm gonna do a tablet format because it's just much easier for you guys to see on the screen when I'm doing this, instead of me having a smaller canvas to work with. So I'm gonna choose tablet, but of course YouTube is whatever fits whatever app you're trying to make. You can read canvas tablet apps on phones, and you can read phone apps on tablets or a computer screen. It's just basically how it's formatted. So I'm gonna do a create. And now Powerapps is starting the development environment. So the Powerapps maker. It's going to take just a second because it's running it. So it will have a splash screen in the start. Welcome to Powerapps Studio. You can decide not to show the splash screen. I like it because sometimes I want to start from a form. Sometimes I just want to create a gallery, and it doesn't take a lot for me to do a skip here. But that's up to you. So now basically I have a canvas which is empty. There's nothing on it, and this is basically absolutely an empty app. Apps are can have multiple screens, and this is what you see on the left here. So I have screen 1 here, so I have an app as a parent, and I have screen 1, and I might have multiple screens. We are going to do one screen, but you can have multiple screens and navigate people through the screens depending on what they choose, or if they want to go into details or something like that. But as I say, we are going to have just one screen. Then you have on top here, you have different things. You can insert things. You have actions, and you can have different things. Different operations you can do basically. And then you have the formula bar, which is where you will write whatever code you can write if you need to write code. So there's not always that you need to write code. Sometimes you write it, and this is maybe a wrong thing to say this is a code, but it is these are formulas that you can write in there, and this can be advanced. It can be a multi-line code in here, but it's not necessary. As I said, you can make Powerapps very complicated and very hard to do, or you can make it very simple and easy. It just depends on the requirements. It's very easy to get started, but sometimes you will hit some walls. There's a great community for Powerapps that you can take a look at. And there you will be able to ask questions and get help, and there's a bunch of things that people have already asked that might be the same problem as yours. Okay, so this was a short introduction to the Powerapps studio, but now let's just start doing. Let's writing. Remember what I said? I wanted first a button that you can click to get your location. So first we need a button. So I'm going to go on the insert menu here. And you have a bunch of different things. I have a label, a button, and the forms, and all these different things here. Even mixed reality, although I have not tried that. So I'm just going to say I'm going to insert a button. And the Powerapps is going to just have a button here. I'm actually going to I'm going to make it rather big because you're not going to have a lot on here. I just want to have, be obvious what we're doing. So I have a button now. Here on the right now, there comes some properties for this particular button. So you can go and set different things. What I mostly want to do is I want to change the font size to something like 36. And I want to say this shouldn't say a button, it should say press for location. So now I have a button. It says press for location. It has the right size and the right font size, but it still is a dead button. It doesn't do anything really. What you will notice is when you start putting objects on here, or controls onto the canvas, that the formula line will have something in it, or usually false. But you can also see that on the left here, or you see there's an equal sign in between, because on the left side of the equal sign you have all the different attributes of this object or this control. And this is the formula for this particular attribute. So if I go here, I can see that onSelect is one, hover fill is another one, padding button. So you can do all kind of. It doesn't only have to be an operation for when someone presses a button. It could be saying if someone hovers over it, change the color or change the whatever it says on it, and all these different things. We are not going to go down into those kind of details. OnSelect is what we are going to touch, but we are not going to touch anything else. So what we said is that we want that when someone presses that button, we want to have the location. And there is a way, because Powerapps is a mobile first program, so it's made for mobile, being it tablets or being it mobile phones. Because of that, it can access the device's location. Even though I'm on a computer, it can still access my location if I allow it. It's the same thing on the computer as it is on phones and tablets. Is that if you have closed down that location, it won't of course show it in, and it won't ask on the computer, but it will ask on phones. Well, it will ask on computers if it's even running for first time, but it won't ask if you have specifically gone and closed down that the browser will not get any location. I did a mistake once, which pretty much ruined my session, almost. So let's go and say that we want to get the location. But before we go and get the location, I just want to put a placeholder where we will put the location on, so that we can see it. So it doesn't just happen behind the scenes. You don't have to imagine what the location is. We will actually see it on the screen. So I'm gonna put in a label. And I'm gonna put this label here. I'm gonna make it a bit bigger, and I'm gonna say that I want the text to be a little bit bigger as well. I want it to be maybe 16. Okay. So now that we have the this one here, so we only have so the formula says the text is equal to text, but we don't want to show just the text here. We want to show something that comes out of it. So before we go on and do the location with the button, I just want to put it on the screen here, and then we're going to put it on the button and show it here as well. Because what Powerapps can do, as most of my mobile application can do, they can get your exact location by latitude and longitude. But I don't only want the latitude and longitude, I also want the address, which just makes it a little bit more complicated. But let's just say location is, and I'm gonna add. So this is basically a very common, formula language that you will know, that the ampersand is just to splice together two text. And I'm gonna say location. This is a built-in. So now Powerapps, asks, do you want to, allow Powerapps to know your location? Yes, I want to allow. This is because I have reset this for this browser, so you can see that it does pop up there. Dot latitude. And I'm gonna add new, and I'm gonna say and I'm just gonna do it like this, and I'm gonna say location dot longitude. So now you can see it pops up straight away. Location is 55, and then 12 something. Yeah. So now you can see where the location is, and this will allow you to get the location of the latitude and longitude. But this does not give us the location name, so basically the address, which is what we wanted. But that's just has to be it. But this is something that we cannot do anything about. Powerapps doesn't do it, but there are a way, of course, because Powerapps does have a lot of connectors, and connectors is something that we can reach out to something else in Powerapps and get help from those kind of applications to actually interpret the location. One of those things that you can reach out to is the Bing Maps service, or the Bing Maps API. If you don't know where it is, the Bing Maps has a API which will allow you to, if you want to use it. Google has one as well. So basically, you can get locations, you can get insights. So basically, what are the stores located close to me, and all kind of different things. But what we want is the location part, which is basically geocode this kind of latitude longitude into an address. We can also make Bing's Map API go the other way. Here I have an address, make that into a latitude and longitude. That of course these API does not come free necessarily. It does come free with some limitations, So I think something like 1,000 calls a day or a week or something. I cannot remember exactly. You should look it up if you want to use it. But it is very, you know, it fits my purposes fine. Otherwise, you can buy, of course, an access to it, and you can do the same with the Google API, and there are other location APIs out there that you can use. I decided to go with Bing Maps because it was easy and it had a built-in connector within the Powerapps. So when you have, you know, signed up for the API, you can get a key. So when I'm logged into the Dev Center, I just press the developer login. I've logged into Dev Center and I have, you know, a free license basically, and now I have a key. And when I have this key, I can use this, you know, connector within Powerapps. So when I'm in Powerapps, I have all these different screens, and I can go on here and I can say there is one here on the just below the plus. There is like a database. If I click on that, it says, you know, connectors, and in the current environment, there's nothing in it. So I can bring in SQL Server data, I can bring in, you know, SharePoint data, I can bring in all kind of different things, but it doesn't have to be connectors. It can also just be, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, fetching something, you know, with an input and output. It can also just be input, or it can also, you know, it can just be, it can be both input and output. So if I open the connectors part here, I will see all these different connectors. The first ones that you can see here are the connectors that I have actually used before. That's why they pop on here. If you want to see them all, there is a little see all connectors down here. If you click on that, it will show you all the different connectors that are available. And there's a lot of them. There's really a lot of different connectors that you can use. The first time you use the Bing Maps connector, it's going to ask you, it's going to pop up with on the left hand side here, it's going to ask you for the key, and after that it doesn't ask again. So it won't ask me, but it's only ask you for the first about the key, and that's it. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to say add a connection. I can also double click on it. Sorry, I cannot. I can also click here. Sorry, that's where it would work. So now in my app, I have a Bing Maps connection. You can say that it didn't do anything for my app. Nothing came up or anything like that. It's just now it's added to my app, and now I can reference it if it has any kind of data or methods or anything like that. I can reference it, and it does do that. It has a method that you can call, which is called Bing Maps dot, and then you can have a different kind of functions that you can call. So now I'm going to add that to my my button, because I want when someone presses my button, I want the location to be stored. So I'm going to, instead of writing this false on select, I'm going to have my write a function here. So because I don't want to just get the location, I want to store it in a variable that I can then use, because I both want to show it on the screen, and I want to put it into the flow when we're going to start that one later on. So I'm going to do set, which is basically to set a variable. I'm going to call my variable my location. Very very original, but this is how it is. And now I'm going to call my Bing Map service, and and I can do Bing Maps, and it has two different functions: get location by address or get location by point. So do you want to have the latitude, longitude back? You will use get location by address. Do you want to get the address back? You want to do get location by point. So I'm going to do get location by point, and now I need to feed it in the latitude and longitude. And you can see it has some explanation of what it needs, just like in most other tools. And we know from before that we can do location dot latitude, and we can do location dot longitude, and then it will so the get geolocation by point with the latitude and longitude in it. I'm gonna assign that to my location variable, and that's it. So of course nothing happened, because I'm saying when someone clicks the button, it's going to be assigned to that variable. So now let's go, instead of saying that instead of having this here, I want to show my the result of my variable. So I'm gonna say my location, which was my variable, and again I'm gonna do a dot, because that variable has three different things in it. that came from Bing Maps. It has the confidence, so how confident is Bing Maps that it was that is the address. What is the type of entity type, which is an address, and then the name, which is the actual address itself. So I'm going to say name, and you see nothing is going to shown here because I haven't pressed the button. It hasn't written to my button, to my variable, so that's nothing is in here. Okay, so far so good. Now let's add another label, because I also want to have the name of the person that is running this. I want that to be added as well. So let's just put that into a 16 as well. And because Powerapps works always with a signed-in user, you can also fetch the name of the user that is signed in and it's running the app. So you don't have to do anything honky pokey. It's just simply a part of Powerapps that you can get the signed-in user. And it is a function called user, and it has a few attributes: email, full name, and image. And I'm gonna just do the full name because I don't need the image. So this is who I am. So it does luckily guess that exactly the person who is running this is me. Simple enough, yes. Now let's try if it works. Let's see if the button works. So I'm gonna press the play button up here because I just want to see if it works. So this is basically a running this to try it out. So I'm gonna press the play button. I'm gonna press this button now, and let's see what it comes back with. So it says that I'm on Falkenbo I-48, and this is actually a little funny because I'm running this from a computer. And when you get the location from a computer, it's not necessarily the location where you're at. It depends a little bit on where your switch box is, basically. So I live actually in number 46, but the box is probably around 48, so that's why it says 48. It depends on your internet connection, basically. I had a very interesting thing when I did this. I presented this topic once for the Icelandic Power BI user group in the Microsoft offices in Iceland, and when I pressed that button there came an address in Ireland, and the reason was because the Microsoft Iceland was actually VPN'd into Microsoft Ireland, and where the network was completely connected to that. So it looks like I was in Ireland, even though I said I was standing in Iceland. So take care if you want to use this to get addresses on a computer. If you're on a mobile device, it's no problem, but if you're on a computer, this could potentially be an issue. So I'm gonna close this down because this actually worked fine, so I don't have to. And now because my variable has that in, so that's why it's showing still, even though I have closed it down, because my variable has this. But if someone opens this brand new, the address is going to be empty until they press the button. Okay, so now I have the address, I have the name. Now I just need to write it to an Excel file, and I need to add the date as well, and then we can start looking at the flow. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another button, because I want the person who is running this to press a button to run the flow. You don't have to have it that they press a button. Okay. This is worrying. So the demo gods are teasing me here. Okay, thankfully they just teased me a little bit. So let's make this bigger. So I'm gonna be called submit. When someone presses this, they're gonna run a flow. I could have just said that as soon as someone presses this button, it puts it on the screen and runs the flow. But I just wanna split it up so it's easier to understand. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna add a new flow. So I'm gonna select my button because I want this to be connected to that button when the time comes. And I'm gonna go to actions, and one of the things on the action is the Power Automate. So this is the deep integration between Power Automate and Powerapps, which is fantastic because it makes your apps so much more potent, because you can run all kind of workflows as a part of your apps. So I'm gonna press Power Automate here, And what it's going to do is it's going to open, saying that there's no flow associated with this button, which is called button 2, which is the property behind it. It says you have all these different power apps or flows, that you can add to the button. Do you want to add one of these to the button, or do you want to do something else? I want to create a brand new flow, so I'm going to start from the plus, but I could use any of my flows that I have done before. So I'm going to press new flow, and what you get now is that it will open Power Automate. It will start a new flow. But what it will do is that it will design a new flow basically, but it will it will set as the first step that it's coming from a button within Power Apps. So you can see that all the templates that Power Automate is giving you always start with a Power App command, and then it has a bunch of different things. So if I wanted to use the Power Apps to send an email, I wanted to add an item to SharePoint and send an email. So there are all the different templates here. You can build your own, or you can start from a template, but you can always edit them. If you choose a template, you can just edit it and use only the part you need and whatever you need to do. I am gonna do a blank one, so I'm just basically gonna have that Power Apps button, and then I'm gonna do the rest myself. So I'm gonna press that. And now it's going to take me into Power Automate. And then it's going to open the flow, and it's going to have a section about my button on it. So I don't need to do anything. So this is the connection back to my Power Apps. And now I can start creating new steps. One thing I want to point out is that the name of the flow is going to be Power Apps button, unless I do something about it. And doing something about it is actually changing this here, which is a little bit odd because it doesn't look like this is the name. But this is actually the name. So if I change this to Pass Summit button, so now it's going to be called Pass Summit button. So you realize that this is where you change it, because if you're doing this with multiple Power Apps, all of them are going to be called Power Apps button, but Power Flow is going to add 1, 2, 3, 4 or something to it, because you cannot have multiple flows called the same. And you can access those flows from Power Automate. You don't have to access them necessarily from Power Apps, but they all have to be triggered from Power Apps. So this is what this one here is. So if you want to edit them, you don't have to go through Power Apps, but you can go through Power Automate. Okay, so we have the trigger, which is our Power Apps. Now we need to add the other steps. So what do we want to do? We want to take whatever comes from our Power Apps. We want to write it into an Excel file, and then we want to update our Power BI dataset. So let's first say a new step. And now we want to find in an Excel file and write to it. So we want to say Excel, and Power Automate has also a huge amount of built-in connectors that you can use. Note that some of the connectors are what is called a premium connector. For example, SQL Server is a premium connector, meaning that the user creating it needs to have a proper license. So I'm running on a free license. I can use a bunch of free stuff, smaller stuff. But if you want to use enterprise data, use a gateway or use SQL Server or some other data sources or connectors, you will need to have a proper license. But I would still say that Power Automate is still one of the things that can bring you most value very fast. So when I choose Excel here, it comes with a few things that are Excel related. First one is Excel Online Business, and then it's Excel Online OneDrive. And when I did this first time, I wanted to do OneDrive. I choose this one here, but you have to choose this one here if you want OneDrive for business, and this one here if you want OneDrive, personal OneDrive. So I'm going to choose Excel Online Business. And now it's going to ask me, okay, what do you want to do with that Excel file? I haven't chosen the Excel file yet, but I just want to say, what is the action you want to do? So you want to delete a row, get worksheets, so I can get data in, and then I can do something, and then I can write data. So I don't necessarily just have to write. I can do all kind of different things here. It can end in an email, or it can end in writing a file, or copy pasting something. Or you can do all kind of different things. What I want to do is I want to add a row into a table. So I want to press that one, add a row into a table, and now it says, okay, now you want to say. You want to add a row in a table. That's my action. So this is my action box. Now I need to choose what file I want to add in and what I want to do. So first of all, I need to choose the file. and it does know, because I'm logged in, it does know who I am and what I have access to. So I want to choose OneDrive for Business. What is a document library? Apparently OneDrive is a document library, even though you don't ever see that in OneDrive for Business. And the file here, now you can traverse all your folders to find it. So mine was in Documents, it was in Check-in App, it was in Past Summit 2020, and it's called Past Summit 2020 XLXSX. Okay, so now we have the file. So now I can start, finding a table in it to add, because my action is add a row into a table. So I can drop down here. This one file only has one table, which was called Past Summit 2020. I can choose that. And now, because this is a defined table, Power Automate knows that this has a name, location, latitude, longitude, and a date. So it doesn't have to figure that out, because it's a defined table. Now, if I want to put something in here, I can just write constant, but I don't want to do that. So this data should be supplied from Powerapps. This took me a little bit, a little while. Yeah, well, this part didn't take me a little while, because as soon as I click in it, I have this called dynamic content over here. I have expressions, and I also have this button called Ask in Powerapps. And this is what you want to do if you want Powerapps to supply it. You want to have this Ask in Powerapps, and this happens. This one option comes up because we started from a Powerapp. So I press Ask in Powerapps. So this will just say, because this attribute is called name, this one is going to be called, add rows in a table name. If I click in the location now, I also want to ask the location in Powerapps, and now you see Ask in Powerapps isn't here anymore. This took me a little while. This confused me a lot, but then there is a see more here. So if I click on see more, it's going to come. It's very weird. I'm going to ask this in Powerapps as well. Go back here, see more, ask in Powerapps, go here, see more, ask in Powerapps. The last thing is the date, and I could of course ask that in Powerapps and have it supplied from as well, but I just want to show you that you can also do expressions in Power Automate, in the flows. You can also, instead of just having dynamic content that comes from Powerapps, you can also write expressions. There is a library of functions that you can go find. There's a bunch of different ones, and each one of those categories has see more. So this is just the ones that are common, but there are a bunch of others that are possible down there. So I want to get a format date-time because I want it to be a date-time, and I want to take the time, which is very typical of Power BI and other Power Platform tools, is that it has that one called UTC now. It's a function that will get you today, and I want to have that formatted as a year, and I want the month, and I want the day. So this is what I want, and I'm going to say OK. And now this is going to be added to my my date column in my Excel file. Okay, so now we have what we want to add to the Excel file. Now we need to add another step, because we also want to do refresh our dataset in Power BI. And Power BI, in Power Automate, we have a couple of Power BI actions. We can add rows to a dataset, export file to page entry report. So add rows to a dataset is only for live datasets or streaming datasets. Sorry, you can export a file to for a page entry report. You can export a file for Power BI reports if you want to, for example, email a PDF version of a report, or an Excel version or something like that. You can do that. But refresh a dataset is the one that we wanted. You want to press refresh dataset. Now it will ask, what workspace do you want? And again, since I'm logged in with my user, it will just be able, you will be able to navigate to it. So I'm gonna say, this is the workspace I want to be working in, and the workspace I want is, the dataset I want is this one here. So this is very simple. It's just gonna refresh the dataset. Now there's one thing I've noticed is that if I do it like this, the problem is that when I write into my Excel file, it takes a little while for it to be saved, because there's an autosave on, of course, in Wonderful Business or Excel Online, but it takes a little bit to save. So what we need to do is, if you want to, because we want to see an instant result here. Now this won't be a problem normally, but since we want to have an instant result, I want to add a little action in here, and I want to add an action which is gonna call delay, and this is underneath the schedule. You can say delay here, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna delay for 20 seconds. This has worked for me all the way down to 5 seconds, but I just want to, because I'm trying to do this in one take, hopefully this will work just as that. Okay, so now I have just done whatever I want, all that I wanted in my flow. I've added the rows to the table. I'm going to wait 20 seconds after I've done that, and I'm going to then refresh the dataset, just so it has a time to save. So I'm going to save my flow in my Power Automate, and now it's saved. No, I can then just close it. I can do a test here, but I don't want to do that. I want to just go back to my Power App, and I'm gonna see now we have in the existing automates. One of them is called Pass Summit button. This is the one that I just added, and I say there's no flows associated with this button, but now I have the button selected. I can go on and say Pass Summit button, and now this flow is going to be ultimately added to this button, and you can see now that onSelect has been changed for this button. It's going to say Pass Summit button .run, because that's what will run a flow. And you can say that it wants a name, a location, a latitude, and a longitude. So I can say user, because I did not write the user one to a variable .name, the full name. Sorry, that's going to be the username. And the location is not in a variable either, so it's going to be location dot latitude, and the longitude is going to be location dot longitude. Oh, sorry, I forgot the location itself, so I only did the longitude. Sorry about that. So I'm gonna have one between here, and that's gonna be the my location, because that's my variable dot name, which is going to be the address itself, the same thing as this is on the screen here. So I have all my 4 attributes. I have set that Pass Summit dot run. It's going to run the Pass Summit button flow. It's going to run that with those variables. Okay, so let's we see this work. This is very exciting. So let's do a test run. I'm gonna press here again. Hopefully I will get the same address. Then it should get the same address. It shouldn't change here. Although I have seen it for when you have when you're connected to a to a LAN. So it has the address. It has a name. Let's press the submit button. Now I did not do anything so that the button will tell me if it worked or anything. You can do that. I just don't have the time to make that work. But you can do so that the button will give you an answer back, and we'll do a check if it managed to finish it all. Okay, so let's go to OneDrive, and let's go to my files. Let's go to documents. There it is. Let's go to check-in app. Let's go to Pass Summit, and let's see if it has written to our file. And it has. So now you have another line in our Excel file, which has it's the address of where we were. It has the latitude and longitude as well. Okay. So let's now see if Power BI has gotten. Now there's a 20. Remember, there were 20 seconds we said that it should go from when we press the button. When it had written to the Excel file, it should go 20 seconds before it refreshed the dataset. So let's see the dataset. Let's just refresh this. Let's see if our dataset has been refreshed. So it should be something 15 something. Oh, it's 303. So it has been refreshed. Well, let's hope that 20 seconds in between was enough. Let's go on and run our report. So it only has now 1. That's because the report is cast. It's so short that I ran it. So I'm just gonna say there he is. Sorry, I want to do a refresh. Didn't work. So maybe it got refreshed a little bit early. So that was too bad, even though. But let's just do a refresh on it manually here. This is space in between is very. It depends a little bit on different things. So if you are gonna do this in production, you would probably want to wait for a couple of minutes or something like that. So let's see if now it works. So now it of course works. So now it says that it has. Oh, this is odd. Yes. So now it has 2 dots, and you see one of them is the location in Falkenborg 46, and the other one is 48. It's because I actually put in the latitude and longitude for my Danish address instead of my Icelandic address. So my bad there. But you see now they've added a new dot, and if it was in different places in the world, it would just be different places. So hopefully that makes sense to you. How you can easily connect those two, especially Power Apps and Power Automate, they connect really well together. And then of course Power BI will just feed from it. That was it for the session. I really hope you enjoyed it. It will help me a lot, and it will help Pass a lot if you do a session evaluation. So please do it. My name is Asgeir Gunnarsson. Hope you enjoyed the session. I will be here for 15 minutes after the session to answer questions. So please, bring your questions, have a chat, because I really do enjoy that part of it. So until then, hope you have a great rest of the conference. Thank you very much.